Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am John Kurtz. When I tell you that tonight there is so much stuff, like I don't know how exactly I'm going to get to it all in an hour. I am dead serious because right when I thought, hey, this is going to be an awesome show to preview a hell of an opening weekend for the Big 12, where I think there are 5 teams that really need to step up in particular. And believe you me, I will tell you each one of those 5 teams who they are in order of most important for the Big 12 this weekend. Dude, we get a realignment bomb dropped on us from good old Brett McMurphy at On 3, and all because of the Maryland athletic director, right? The Maryland athletic director decides to open his mouth a little bit, and now here we are talking about conference realignment once again. So I'll tell you what, we've got a lot to get to. We got the talent composite dropped as well. So, man, we now know who the most talented team in the Big 12 is. We can definitively make that statement now. And I'll be honest, I'm not surprised by who was number 1, but a little bit surprised just because of what we have seen recently. That was a total moronic statement. I'm not surprised, but I'm a little bit surprised. I was a little bit surprised by who was number 1, okay? But if you've been paying attention, it won't come as a shock to any of you. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to am I pointing the right way? I am not. The Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Look at that right over my shoulder. Some nice branding there. OFBnews.com to subscribe. That's OFBnews.com to get subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Make sure you do that. Get it twice to your inbox. Free per week. 5,000 plus Big 12 subscribers already who are enjoying Open for Business. Thank you, everybody who does that. Keep the comments coming. Thank you, everybody. As you file in, I have a guess that this is going to be a pretty crowded show here tonight. So keep the comments flowing. But if you want to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box. That is how you do that. You can submit a super chat and pop right on. That is how it works. So much appreciate everybody for being here. One final reminder, if you are not watching live, we still love you. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to submit a question or comment that way. And if you do so, I will kick off the next show with it. Just like my friend Clint. Thank you, Clint. Appreciate your support of the show as always. Clint says, great job with great content and analysis with this show and OFB. Thank you, Clint. Love your new background too. Yes, me too, man. This has been a lot of work that's gone into my office here over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. So I'm feeling great about it. But Clint makes the point that Utah became a state on 7/24/1847. The celebration is known as Days of 47. Lions, Tigers, and Bears, oh my. So good old Bear Bachmeyer rocking the 4-7. I'm excited to see that on Saturday. We'll get to see it for the first time. A lot of quarterbacks making debuts across the conference. Haas Heine, going to be a quarterback at Oklahoma State, says Mike Gundy, at least the guy who will start. For now, man, what do we got? UCF will be breaking in a new quarterback. West Virginia breaking in a new quarterback. Colorado, we got the Caden Salter announcement officially, although it sounds like Juju Lewis will play as well. So there's a lot happening there. There'll be a lot to keep track of here in week 1 of the Big 12. And I promise we will get to that. If it wasn't such a juicy little nugget drop by Brett McMurphy and then Andy Staples, both of On 3, I wouldn't be talking about conference realignment right here to kick off the show. But unfortunately, that is where we're at. I say unfortunately, but man, I can already tell by the numbers tonight, like this is what you guys enjoy. This is what you guys enjoy. All right. So here we go. Not one, but 2 Big 12 schools were mentioned as legitimate possibilities for the Big 10 by one of college football's biggest newsbreakers and one of college football's biggest show hosts. And in particular, one of these is going to stir a lot of debate. They always do and have ever since they entered the conference. All right, so just when you think football season's here, we can put all the realignment stuff behind us, it never fails. I tried telling you guys this not that long ago on the show. This is the time of year something always happens. I mean, like last year we were doing the ACC song and dance with Florida State and Clemson, and there was the smoke about Big 12 meetings with those schools using it as kind of like a backup option. Like we we could not escape it last year. Obviously, the summers before that, you had legitimate big-time realignment moves. It always happens. And now here we are. We're talking about Big 12 teams potentially going to the Big 10. Just when you thought you could rest your head easy at night that the Big 12 is going to have complete and total stability for eternity. I'm not saying that, a report and some speculation here from our friends at On3 is enough to totally jar that loose, but you may need to sleep with like half an eye open, put it that way. And it's all because of the new athletic director at Maryland. That's maybe the craziest part of all of this. The AD at Maryland, his name is Jim Smith. He took over very recently for a different AD at Maryland, and he went on a local radio show fan site and was asked how many teams. First of all, whoever asked this question, great question. This is a great way to elicit an interesting response from a new AD and fuel the news cycle. He did a great job with it. This is very good interviewing. The question was, how many teams will be in the Big Ten in 2030? How many teams will be in the Big Ten in 2030? And Jim Smith's answer was 20. If you're doing the math at home, kids, the Big Ten currently has 18 teams. So that means he thinks as of 2030, 2 more teams will be there. And you could argue, on one hand, this is actually an answer that's, one, not very surprising, or two, if it is surprising, it's surprising because it's 20 and not 24, or, this is the Big Ten, 28, 35. Tony Petitti may want a 60-team conference. Who the hell knows? He certainly seems to want a 60-team playoff. But the answer was at least that there would be more teams there. Okay. So Brett McMurphy wrote about this. He added a little bit of reporting about Notre Dame, being further entrenched now in independence than they were even before. So kind of like one of those, hey, don't even think about trying to throw Notre Dame into this equation. Lots of talk about Virginia and North Carolina, but the most interesting part of this came during Brett McMurphy's appearance with Andy and Ari on 3. Great show. You should go check it out. I think they do a very good job. But when Brett McMurphy popped in over there, they started getting more into the weeds of all right, who could these teams be? Brett McMurphy, I think, said in the article that based on his reporting, he did have an idea of who the top candidates would be for the Big Ten, but he was sworn to secrecy. So he wasn't going to divulge a ton, at least in the article, but he did divulge more when he actually hopped on with these guys and they started having a combo about it. Okay. So look, the first one is the one I think is going to get people fired up here because, listen, this has been a team that ever since entering the conference has rubbed some people the wrong way. They have ruffled some feathers. Many people have felt like the attitude of said fan base was that they were too good for this place here. And so when you hear when you hear Brett McMurphy mention Utah being the sourced team that he had heard about, don't shoot the messenger, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, don't shoot the messenger.
From the Big 12, this gets kind of fascinating because I reached out to somebody that I trust a great deal, and they actually brought up a school in the Big 12. And to me, again,
can I guess? Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it Kansas?
It was actually Utah.
Oh, that's a good one.
So here's the 5 AAU teams from the Big 12: Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. And when I mentioned Utah, again, I'm thinking Utah, what about geography? Obviously, geography doesn't matter. They go from coast to coast. And the response was, it's an untapped market, Salt Lake City, team on the uptick. Again, 5 years from now,
they're not really on the uptick. They've been good for 20 years. Over 20 years.
Yeah, obviously, right. Kyle Whittingham will no longer be there in 5 years. At least we think he won't. Who knows? He may surprise us. But again, who knows what they're going to look like in 5 years.
As I said, don't shoot the messenger. There it is, Utah. But look, the case that Brett McMurphy lays out there, it does make sense. The Big Ten is clearly in a geography be damned sort of mode. So who cares? It's a new market for them. Utah is, I can tell you from experience, I learned very quickly how fast growing the area is, around Salt Lake. Like when I traveled to the area last year, Park City, specifically where I stayed for the K-State BYU game. And I put on Twitter, I was like, man, this is beautiful. I love the hiking here. Like, this is all awesome. I would love to move out here, like, halfway sarcastically, but halfway not kidding, actually. And I got a wave of you in my Twitter replies that were like, no, it's too crowded. Don't come out here. Too crowded, too crowded, too crowded. So everybody was like, don't do it. I know it's a really rapidly growing population base. It's a place that they are not. I've seen it mentioned in the chat already. Yes, Utah is an AAU member, which does matter. And that was a big piece of what Brett McMurphy talked about in this interview, is that the selection pool would be out of 13 teams from the ACC and Big 12 who are AAU members. That seems to still be something, at least according to Brett McMurphy's reporting, that would be important here. I think some have maybe doubted how important it is anymore, that any part of academics matter, but apparently it still does, according to Brett McMurphy's reporting. And if the Big Ten is in a position to be picky, they certainly would prefer that. So new population base, big population base, AAU, and obviously the football program has been very good. Now, the question will come, if we're talking about 2030, okay, well, what happens over the next 4 to 5 years for Utah? They need to pull themselves back up off the mat. Devin Dampier needs to deliver. I mean, this team needs to be better than it has been the past few years, but they can. I mean, Kyle Whittingham, I know there's speculation about him retiring. They've already named a successor, but he's only 65. Like, that's not, if he wanted to do this another 5 to 10 years, I would think he certainly would be able-bodied to do it. Utah does have a case that, I mean, you can understand why they would be on the fringes of this discussion. Now, I would say if we're talking about Jim Smith saying, hey, there will be 20 teams in the Big Ten in 2030, 20 teams, and we're saying, would Utah be one of 2 that get added to the Big Ten? I don't know that that's the discussion we're having. This seems to me to be more of like a, hey, if they're going to like 24, the only case really for 20 would be, hey, maybe if UNC and Virginia really are 1-2, which McMurphy talked about, and the SEC gets them both, then you got to move further down your list. Like, maybe that comes into play, maybe. But I would think this would be more of a 24 team sort of discussion. It all puts a lot of onus on this season for Utah to get the train back on the tracks. This does feel like a very large system. This is a very important season for BYU from Utah from a big picture standpoint. All right, let me lock that in. This is a very big season for Utah from a big picture standpoint to make sure that this is not a trend of mediocrity. And this is reestablishing, hey, we are a very good program that had quarterback injuries for a couple of years, and that is what drug us down. This now is like floating that carrot out there. Like, apparently some still within Big Ten circles feel like Utah's got a shot there. They've got a shot. So you best be performing well in this conference that you think, I'm speaking for some of the fans here, but you think you are better than. You better go out and do it this year after a 5-7 season last year for sure. Now, I think they definitely have it in them, and they probably will be. But these are the types of things I talk about all the time. Like, it feels like in this world, there is so much extra added pressure to schools in the Big 12 to perform because of these very big existential threats and things that are out there for you to potentially pursue. Now, the other school here, you heard Andy Staples mention it there, was Kansas. He guessed Kansas on which school Brett McMurphy had heard the most about. Now, Brett McMurphy, I guess we should make this distinction. The chatter about Kansas in this video was not Brett McMurphy saying, hey, this is sourced, other than Kansas was one of the 5 AAU schools in the Big 12 that Brett McMurphy mentioned, like, hey, it would come from one of the 5 AAUs in the Big 12 or 13 or 8 AAUs in the ACC, 13 total. That would be the pool that the Big Ten is picking from. So Kansas was in that. But Andy Staples kind of made the pitch for Kansas a little bit later on. So let's listen to
It's just got a massive donation. And it's not all coming at once, but it's a $300 million donation from one of its big donors. They have tons of money. They're paying Lance Leipold like a good SEC coach gets paid. Like, what if Kansas is good for the next 3 or 4 years at football? Which, based on what we saw Saturday, they could be pretty good this year. So what happens? They're spending like a Big Ten or an SEC school right now.
I think ultimately, though, the university presidents are going to make a decision. And look, let's cut to the chase. How much money will adding Kansas compared to Miami bring to the Big Ten? That probably will be the deciding factor.
So you hear Brett McMurphy there. He was a little more, I mean, dismissive is not the correct word, but a little bit more like, hey, this is the reality. You would have to be getting yourself in possibly over a school like a Miami, and that money would ultimately rule the day there. But I mean, the case for Kansas, I think, has been pretty obvious for a while. Like, they've got a great basketball program. Basketball seems to matter a little bit more these days, just in the general scope of college athletics and conference realignment. We've seen with the SEC how they have built up basketball, how big of a deal that was this past year. Brett Yormark has had this vision of decoupling basketball and making it a bigger deal in terms of TV rights. So the basketball program matters. They are an AAU school, again, sort of table stakes, prereq, apparently, for the Big Ten. And now they're investing quite a bit in football, and they just got a $300 million gift from David Booth. So I think what that does, that is not like an in perpetuity you're going to be able to spend like an SEC school, but it certainly is going to put you at the top of the line of the Big 12 and in least stressed about hitting the rev share number, being able to pay coaches more, perhaps facilities, support staff, stuff like that. That's where the spending for Kansas will be up relative to the rest of their peers now because of this donation. And it's kind of just it's not just symbolic because of all the things that it will tangibly do, but in terms of their Big Ten case, a little bit symbolic. Like, hey, we've got this that we can flex out there if we want to. We can go get one of the biggest gifts in college athletics history because we have those types of resources available to us. So it's a nice little kind of like a flare that you're shooting up in the night to try and get the Big Ten's attention. And, I think Andy is probably right that it may have done that a bit. So, yeah, you throw on top of that, if the football program continues to perform, again, what happens over the next 4 or 5 years? But if the football program continues to perform, that's going to make them even more and more attractive. And Kansas is definitely one thing you can say about them, like Travis Goff, they are going all out. They understand the importance of the moment. They understand the existential threat and, hey, we got to do everything we can to be a part of the highest level that we can. They're absolutely doing all of that. And so that's really just Andy Staples recognizing that aspect of it. So those were the two directly mentioned in this video. I will mention one more that was directly mentioned and two indirectly mentioned, plus one that I was a little surprised was not mentioned here in just a moment. All right. But for now, let me remind you, thank you everybody who's here. If you're filing in, please do hang out in the chat. That is all great. But you can click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat and guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight if you want to be a part of the discussion. And just a great way to support the channel. I appreciate everybody who does that. John-Kurtz-4 if you're not watching live. Another way to support the channel. And I will kick off the next show with your question or comment if you leave it there with the donation at John-Kurtz-4. Also, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. To subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, join 5,000 plus Big 12 fans who do already and get it in your inbox twice a week for free. I was working on part of that earlier. So tomorrow, check your inbox. You'll get a nice primer for everything coming up this week in the Big 12. Okay. Because we have a loaded week. And when I say week, I may have said weekend earlier. It's like a week, man. Thursday to Monday. We're going Thursday to Monday with Big 12 football. You got a handful of games Thursday, handful of games Friday, bunch of games Saturday, and a game on Monday. So it is great, man. It is great. Eddie, thank you, my man. Eddie says, best newsletter out there. You heard the man, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of this video. It is very easy to get signed up. Okay, let's tag on to this discussion about what Brett McMurphy and the On3 crew said about expansion here, okay? So a little bit more from Brett McMurphy and Andy Staples On3. They're reporting and speculation about Big 12 targets for the Big 10 for the next wave of expansion. Kansas and Utah are the two main ones they mentioned, but there are three others that were also on the periphery of this discussion, according to what McMurphy and Staples said. So Utah, again, quick recap here, untapped market, a growing market, a lot of people moving out there, huge area in Salt Lake City. Utah has been a really good, solid football program for a long time, winning the Pac-12, obviously. Kyle Whittingham has made Utah a brand in college football, and they're an AAU school, which is the table stakes. Like, we allow you to sit at this table to be a part of the conversation of whether you can join because your academics are considered AAU worthy. Kansas is who Andy Staples mentioned. They have a great basketball program, a rapidly improving football program. They are an AAU institution, and they've been flexing their money and resources, and will have some extra wiggle room with that because of the $300 million gift from David Booth that they just got. Plus, no more total eyesore of a football stadium, as we all saw on Saturday. So again, the AAU piece of this is what becomes important now when you look at the other three that were at least thrown out there, like floated as, all right, like maybe these are possibilities as well, depending on what the Big Ten is going to get to. Is it going to go past 20 to 24? Always been kind of a divisive topic, I feel like, the academics part of this discussion, because there were some at the beginning of this latest wave of realignment that started in 2021 that were really clinging to for a while, like, oh, academics matters a lot. And in particular, this came into the discussion when the Pac-12 was on the chopping block. Like, oh, there's all these long-standing relationships with the Big Ten, and they would never want to sever that because of academia. And then that did happen, and the Pac-12 died, and nobody really shed too much of a tear, at least in the college sports world, the suits making all those decisions. So I understand some skepticism here about the academics, but I will reiterate again, Brett McMurphy was pretty emphatic in saying, like, hey, I think it will come from these 13 schools that are AAU members in the Big 12 and the ACC. So, okay, John, we know Utah and Kansas are AAU schools. What are the other three in the Big 12? Who else has academics at that level that the Big 10, a little bit more highfalutin, that the Big Ten would actually want to add? Well, those three schools, I'm glad you asked, are Arizona State, Arizona, and Colorado. Arizona State, Arizona, and Colorado. So one of those three did get a direct mention in there. The others I include because Brett McMurphy, again, had said, hey, the 5 Big 12 schools that are AAU schools could be in the mix here. Colorado, though, was mentioned by name. I cut it off in one of those clips. But Brett McMurphy also went on to say, hey, what's Colorado going to be in 5 years? Will Deion still be around? Will that brand have developed? Look, in terms of brand building, Colorado has made a quicker turnaround on that than anybody I can really remember in college football. You say what you will about how you feel about it or what you think of the longevity of it or how you feel about Deion as a guy or a person, whatever. You cannot deny how quickly that brand has just done a 180 with him in charge. So Colorado's case would be, I mean, there is some history. They do have a national championship, right? Now Deion is a big ratings draw. Colorado's by far, they're like doubling up the next highest rated team in the Big 12 in terms of TV eyeballs that they are drawing. Obviously they've started to win more, winning 9 games last year. They're going to bring in like your casual fan, which is like an important thing. Now, what's the staying power for Deion with that over the next 5 years as it becomes less of a novelty, even if he is still a head coach? As long as success follows, relatively speaking, I think he probably will still be a draw, but what are the diminishing returns on that? Because there probably are some. There's going to be more novelty at the beginning of that. And then, of course, the big question, like, will he stick around? A guy who is now also battling health issues. Shador and Shiloh are no longer there. His sons. There is a lot of speculation about how long he's actually going to last there. If he is, I suppose you can give them a puncher's chance just because of the brand building that they would be able to do. But if he's not, I think that falls off pretty quickly. I mean, it was not long ago, just a couple of years before, Colorado was arguably the worst Power 5 team and program in the country. I mean, they had no juice at all. Arizona State. Really interesting case. And I saw somebody in the chat early on say, hey, why not Arizona State? Arizona State is a very interesting case here. They've got a head start on the brand building in the 12-team playoff era by going last year. And that's as important a thing as any. If you are trying to elevate yourself, elevate your stature, brand, whatever you want to call it, you got to start by winning games and getting to the college football playoff. And Arizona State did that last year. So if they're able to string together 3 and 5 years, something like that, they're going to have a leg up on their competition as far as that goes. Always kind of thought of as a sleeping giant. Like Arizona State is a massive school. They have a massive enrollment. Should have a lot of resources, though both Arizona schools have had their financial struggles as far as the athletic departments go. But I think there's reason to believe Arizona State could be a sleeping giant that awakens over the next 5 years. That's certainly within the realm of possibility. And then if that happens and you're already an AAU school, maybe the Big Ten says, hey, we may not be in Utah. We're also not in the state of Arizona. That's also a growing place, right? That's a place where a lot of people are moving to and gravitating towards. So a lot of the advantages that are there for Utah, I think, are there for Arizona State. Arizona State just has not won as much as Utah recently. I mean, I think Arizona, the biggest thing you could say there is just, hey, basketball is continuing to matter more and more in conference realignment, and Arizona has a very good basketball program. Football, and the problem there, obviously right now, it doesn't look very good at all, and it's just been sporadic success over the last couple of decades. I mean, they've jumped up and had nice years here or there. Shout out to Rich Rod, now at West Virginia, right? Obviously, Jed Fish a couple of years ago, but sporadic, I really think, is the word for that with Arizona. So I think those are kind of the cases for those three if you're going to keep them on the radar, like Brett McMurphy had really suggested today. It is a little bit interesting to me that TCU does not get mentioned here. Now, I know that's because of the AAU piece of it, but they've always been one that kind of enters that discussion with the Big Ten. And I think a lot of that is, I mean, look, they're in the state of Texas, and the Big Ten is now trying to be this Christopher Columbus conquer all of the land across the, sea to shining sea thing. They're not in the state of Texas. You want to go plant your flag in the state of Texas and do it in DFW? I mean, TCU, I would think, would be a lot more valuable to the Big Ten than it would be the SEC. TCU is a program that's proven capable of winning 12 games multiple times over the last few years, multiple coaches. They played for a national championship just 3 years ago. They are an AAU school. They're in a super talent-rich metro, and it would allow you to plant your flag in the biggest football part of the country in the state of Texas. So I don't know. I would love Truth Serum in the Big Ten. Like, is that, would they be on the periphery of this even without an AAU membership? Would they be higher than any of those schools that are AAU schools? We shall see. Because, Virginia is a really good example of this. One thing Brett McMurphy talked about a lot that was not directly related to the Big 12, but was that he said North Carolina and Virginia would be picks 1 and 2 in a realignment draft between the SEC and the Big 10. And he's like, yes, like for real, Virginia. And I know that's some people look at that and scoff just because Virginia has not been all that successful on the field. Huge population base. It is a, contiguous state. It's attached to everybody else in the SEC. So geographically it makes a lot of sense. Prestigious, like academic institution. Those are the selling points for Virginia. And if that's the type of thing that matters, then I guess maybe you would say it matters more that Arizona is an AAU member than TCU not being an AAU member, even though the football is much better at TCU. I don't know. But the two that were specifically mentioned, once again, to at least sleep with one half eye open as of right now, would be Utah and Kansas. Starting with Utah, Brett McMurphy had that one actually sourced, that Utah would be the name on the list there. So I know there have been fences perhaps that still have not been mended between Utah fans and Big 12 fans, though it seems like there's some work being done on that front. But I'll be interested how you guys all handle this news. I mean, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. I'm sure there will be plenty of opinions there. And please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you, everybody who has filed in tonight. Very busy in the chat. If you want to click the $ below the chat box, you can submit a super chat, which will, 1, support the channel, and 2, ensure that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You see the sign right above my head there. OFBnews.com. OFBnews.com to get subscribed to Open for Business, and appreciate everybody who does that. You can also click the link in the description of this video. And hey, you guys know the drill now. I feel like you've been around long enough at this point. We have to say hello to my friends at SeatGeek. If you are going out to games this weekend and you don't have your tickets yet, if you have not used SeatGeek before, I'm giving you $20 off. Just use promo code Kurtz to get $20 off. Use that to buy a couple of sodas, maybe some popcorn, hot dog, or something else at the game. Promo code Kurtz for $20 off your first order on SeatGeek if you have not used it before. So if you're someone who doesn't care which ticketing app that you're using and you haven't tried SeatGeek before, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. And here's a little more info. Football season is here, guys, and that means we all need to find good deals on tickets, all right? And the best place to do that is SeatGeek. I have to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek. So obviously college football is covered, but if you're a music guy like me, it's perfect for concerts. I'm buying a ton of concert tickets this fall. And I tell you what, I have my eye on those Holy War tickets for BYU and Utah coming up as well. And man, all you got to do is open up the app. It's perfect. You can go check what's going on here, find the green dots in the seat. That means they're good deals. Red dots, maybe not so much, but SeatGeek will help you find the best deals on seats depending on where it is that you are trying to sit. They're each rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you guys know I'm here for you. I've got a code for you. Code Kurtz gets you $20 off your tickets. Again, that's code Kurtz for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase with promo code Kurtz. Make sure you just click the link in the description to download the app and have that code on hand and ready to go. Guys, I'm here to help you out. I've got your back. Hit up my friends at SeatGeek. You heard the man. You heard the man. Thank you to the good people at SeatGeek. All right, to the football this weekend. The Big 12 can make a monster statement here in week 1, but it needs 5 teams to step up. All right, 5 teams to step up. I'm going to tell you who those 5 are and who are the most important in order of importance. All right, Big 12 got to take center stage in week 0. Not only Farmageddon, but Kansas playing on Big Fox definitely helped out later that night. We're seeing the TV number now came close to what Georgia Tech, Florida State did last year. It was in the 4s. It seemed like I saw a couple different numbers floating around today that were over 4 million for the TV number, which is close to 5 million last year for Georgia Tech and Florida State, but also much higher than the average Colorado game last year, which was in the 3s. So it's good news, and it's not unexpected, and it was a chance to show off the conference, and you've already heard my spiel about that. I think the Big 12 showed out pretty well, all things considered. But you can follow that up with, I would argue, an even more impactful weekend this weekend, because you have opportunities, legit cracks at the Big 10 and the SEC, and some of the most hyped teams out of the ACC. And these are the opportunities that don't come around much, and they will be coming around probably less frequently as the sport moves forward. Now, maybe, I know I've seen some speculate about could Bedlam come back now that the SEC is going 9-game conference schedule, and they're still supposedly encouraging everybody to do the one P5 or P4 rather non-conference game. Outside of that, we'll see. And some of this is going to depend on what the playoff format looks like in the future. But it's also very possible that things go back to the SEC and Big Ten singing Kumbaya together, and they do a scheduling agreement together, and then you're sort of locked out of ever playing SEC and Big Ten teams in a non-con format outside of if you get to the playoff and meet them in the playoff. So you got to watch out for that. And that means you got to take advantage of every single one of these opportunities. And I hate to always be doing this. It does suck to hey, it can't just be about the games. There's existential threat always looming, bigger, but I think those stakes are real, man. I think that matters. So you can own Thursday, Friday, and Monday if you're the Big 12 here. Not even just from winning games, but just with the spotlight, people watching you. Texas, Ohio State's going to control Saturday. There are a lot of other good games scattered throughout the weekend. But you got some real big opportunities to steal the show here if you have some teams winning on multiple days this week. because, Thursday, Cincinnati, Nebraska, a lot of people are going to be watching Cincinnati, Nebraska. Friday, a lot of people are going to be watching Auburn, Baylor. Monday, obviously, a ton of people are going to be watching TCU and North Carolina. You can really get some sustain throughout this weekend, not just one big impact, but you can get some sustain throughout the weekend based on how the schedule is distributed. Big 12 takes a lot of heat, man. A lot of disrespect these days about the Big 12's place in the world. It's left pretty much completely out of the discussion last year for a second playoff bid. BYU did not get the respect it deserved. Arizona State did not get the respect that it deserved, finishing behind Boise in those playoff rankings. And there's only really one way to remedy that. It's to win games against other leagues. So I just laid out 3 of the 5 teams. The others that I would throw in there, you've got Georgia Tech at Colorado on Friday. Chance for the Buffs to make a statement against a kind of a trendy playoff team, trendy playoff pick, dark horse out of the ACC and Georgia Tech. And then Utah, UCLA. That's another Big 12, Big 10 matchup that you get. You get Utah, UCLA. So you've got an opportunity there. 2 games against the Big 10, 1 against the SEC, 2 against the ACC. And those games are North Carolina, which carries all this extra weight and discussion because of Bill Belichick, and then popular ACC dark horse pick. So Baylor has the biggest role to play here. Out of all these Big 12 teams that have marquee matchups this week, Baylor has the biggest role to play. It's an SEC team, and it's an SEC team with a pretty big name. That's a big enough name out of the SEC to draw some real attention, even if Auburn has been very shaky the last few years. You get a beatable SEC team at home with a big name. Got to take advantage of that opportunity, man. Got to take advantage of that opportunity. If you lose, wow, a Big 12 contender, somebody that I have put in the Big 12 championship game this year, a Big 12 contender can't take down crappy Auburn right now. The way this Auburn program's going, you can't beat them at home. Clear statement on the Big 12, right? You will get that very quickly from SEC country. Now, I don't think that's totally fair because I think Auburn has a really talented roster outside of hey, what's going to happen with the quarterback? That's obviously the question there, and that's what you have to take advantage of. But Auburn, I'm looking at the 24/7 talent composite right now that just came out today. They're 13th in the country. Auburn has the 13th most talented roster in the country. So it should mean something if you go out and win that game. And that's where you got to get after Jackson Arnold. Auburn has a really good offensive line, but you got to get after Jackson Arnold, make life difficult on him, and then you got to go score. I mean, this feels to me like a game where you may have to rely on that offense to really shell shock Auburn a bit and put Jackson Arnold behind the 8 ball so that he's going to feel like, hey, I got to get this all back in one swing. I need Baylor. You need a quick start with that offense, get Jackson Arnold back on his heels and turn him back into the turnover prone guy that the Arizona Wildcats know all about from the Alamo Bowl a couple of years ago. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. And I think I want this one badly for the Big 12. I definitely do want this one badly. And Baylor, with that brutal schedule that they have to start the year, this is a game that they need. They definitely need it too. They've still got a road trip to SMU before they even hit conference play, which is going to start with Arizona State and K-State. I think it's as simple as this. Baylor has the better quarterback, and Baylor is playing at home. I just don't trust Jackson Arnold. Even if you tell me, hey, the 3 play caller stuff and the 3 quarterbacks may play stuff from Hugh Freeze is all overblown, which perhaps it is. I still think better quarterback, home game. Jackson Arnold was just a nightmare last year. I think you might be able to repair him. I would not expect it to look all that great in week 1 on the road. So I'm going to take Baylor in that. Now, I would take Nebraska to beat Cincinnati. But Cincinnati is number 2 in terms of importance here, okay? Because you get a rip at the Big 10. And Nebraska, to me, kind of feels like Georgia Tech-y. Like I was saying, Georgia Tech is sort of a dark horse, trendy playoff pick out of the ACC. Same sort of thing with Nebraska in the Big 10. Like Josh Pate, for instance, has Nebraska in the playoff and finishing 10-2. So there's some real love for Nebraska at this point. Can you go out and shock them? Like Cincinnati is not a team. Oh man, my light went out. I'm sorry, guys. Cincinnati is not a team that is very highly respected in the Big 12. as of right now. And if they can go out and beat Nebraska, that sure says an awful lot, man. That sure says an awful lot if you can go out and beat the Huskers. So I'm really hopeful. I'm optimistic that Cincinnati can do it. I would not predict it, but in terms of importance, it's a chance to score a major win over a Big Ten contender for a Big 12 team that, frankly, not many are thinking a whole lot of right now. Like Scott Satterfield's on the chopping block. There was the list that came out recently of head coaches across the country. I mean, it's basically like your hot seat list across the country. And Scott Satterfield was one of those coaches listed. So go prove us wrong, Scott Satterfield, Brendan Sorsby and company. I know there are some. I have heard some of the whispers of people who can build a somewhat motivating or a somewhat optimistic case, I would say, for Cincinnati there. This is the chance to really prove it. I love this. Kurtz After Dark. It is most definitely Kurtz After Dark. And yes, Nebraska, it's always this is the year prediction for about 15 years now. But I will say Matt Rule is a legit coach. And Matt Rule in year 3, this has been the year where things typically jump up big time for him. So you got to watch out for that. This is the year where Matt Rule typically does get a program going, and Baylor knows that as well as anybody. So I do think there is something to that. Give me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to go flip the light switch to at least get some overhead lights on, and I will be right back as Kurtz After Dark continues. All right, that should help out a little bit. Number 3, in terms of importance, this is where I go TCU, North Carolina. Now, I'm putting that above Utah playing a Big Ten team, but I'm putting that above it because much like Farmageddon, you know that the eyeballs are going to be out. You know that the eyeballs are going to be out watching this one because everybody is morbidly curious about what Bill Belichick is going to look like at North Carolina. I mean, myself included. Like, I am very, very intrigued by what Belichick will actually look like in a college setting. And this is very, very similar to TCU playing Colorado 2 years ago, right? When they got the Deion debut. That was a game that TCU lost. This is a chance to flip the script on that. And I also think it's just TCU is a team that needs to prove something here. Like, last year, the disastrous non-conference that included the SMU walloping really put them behind the 8 ball, and nobody was paying attention to TCU, even though they played really good ball down the stretch last year. And Josh Hoover put together statistically one of the most impressive seasons we've seen from a quarterback recently in the Big 12. Well, now's your time to go show everybody like we should be a force to be reckoned with and taken seriously in the Big 12 this year. Opportunity for TCU to do that. And you're not going to get a game like this with this many people watching Labor Day, ESPN at night. You will not get those types of viewership numbers very often as the Big 12. So you want to win. You want to win that game. I think TCU will. Like that, I don't know. Maybe I am too dismissive of Bill Belichick because some of the circus that surrounds him these days, which what a crazy thing to say that you would have never thought about saying like 10 years ago. But I don't know, man. I feel like there's a chance that thing goes way south, and I'm hopeful that TCU will be the first one to flip the domino on that. Colorado. Speaking of Deion and Colorado, and for some people, they would say circus. I would not say total circus. I seem to be more respectful of Deion than probably the average fan or the average person out there, but I did still. And last year, I picked them to win 6 or 7 games. They won 9. This year, I would pick Colorado to win 6 or 7 games. Are they going to win 9? Is it going to be that type of a year? And, a lot of this discussion with the Big 12, its place in the world comes down to we, try and fight and gnash our teeth against the Big 10 and the SEC. But there is also this comp that always goes against the ACC. Okay? The ACC. Are you better than the ACC? And that, I think, especially with the ACC kind of locking down its biggest brands, it would appear, at least for the next few years, with the settlement, more people have just kind of resigned to like, yeah, well, of course, the ACC is better than the Big 12. You saw it in how the two leagues were treated in the playoff discussion last year, for sure. The Big 12 did not get a whole lot of respect there relative to like a Miami And then SMU obviously made the playoff. 2 teams get in from the ACC. They had 3 that were heavily in consideration. Go knock out one of the top dogs in the ACC this year. Georgia Tech was picked 4th in the ACC preseason poll. They got a couple of first place votes. So when I say like dark horse, people really think highly of them. Haynes King was a top 25 quarterback, according to CBS Sports in the list that they just dropped today. Didn't see Caden Salter from Colorado on that. Didn't see Juju Lewis either. Caden Salter's got a chance to go outplay Haynes King and make a big statement. I mean, Brent Key is one of the real hot names in the coaching profession as well right now from what he did for Georgia Tech last year, especially. And guess what? That started with one of these high leverage opportunities in front of a ton of people. Like the Georgia Tech hype last year started when they beat Florida State to start the season in Ireland. So you got to flip the script on them here. If you're Colorado, got to flip the script on them. If Colorado, a team who we have no official Big 12 poll this year, right? But in at least the straw poll that was done by Gambling Gauchos of media members, I mean, Colorado was like 10 or 11. I mean, and I think it feels to me like that's about where I've seen them from a lot of places, maybe as high as like 7 or 8, but thought of as being kind of a mid-bottom half of the Big 12 team this year. If Colorado can jump up and beat the team that was given a couple first place votes in the ACC, let's ride. Let's ride. I'm here for it if Colorado can do it. Colorado is, I think, disrespected in terms of its ability to program build. Defense got a lot better last year. I think they've got a great defensive coordinator. Offensive line started to get a little bit better last year. If Colorado was legit program building here, they definitely could go win that game. Colorado, in terms of the talent composite, when I speak of program building, they're second in the Big 12 in the talent composite. And actually, if you go by average star rating, they would be number 1. They just don't have quite as much as the number 1 team, who I will reveal to you in just a little bit. So go make it happen, Colorado. And finally, Utah at the bottom of this list of the 5 most important teams and games for the Big 12 this weekend. Utah just needs to reestablish itself. And this is a game where you should be able to go do that. Like, think about these 2 programs as programs. What do you think of UCLA? Just kind of, I'll say it, like finesse and soft and no real identity and just kind of floating around in like 5 and 7 land as a program right now. I just, there's nothing, not a lot of backbone really to UCLA football. Now they were at times a little better last year than I and most thought they would be. Maybe I should give Deshaun Foster more credit for that. I just don't think of UCLA as a program with much of an identity or a backbone. Utah has that. They may not have had a quarterback the last few years that was healthy and successful, but Utah's got a backbone and Utah's got an identity, and that is being really physical. Okay? Utah needs to go punish UCLA. Utah needs to go out physical them, out tough them, and put it on them a bit. And obviously a lot of that's going to be Devin Dampier too, kicking off the Devin Dampier era. There's been a lot of hype and a lot of talk about the guy this offseason. Here is your first opportunity to go make a statement. Your first opportunity to say, hey, the hype is real. The hype is real. Fuel the positive narrative on the Devin Dampier era. Establish that you are a tougher and better program than what UCLA is, and earn some extra cachet for the Big 12 by doing that. This, honestly, that Utah-UCLA game, to me, is more of a, this would hurt more than it would help if you won. It would hurt to lose more than it would help if you won. This Utah cannot go lose this game. I'm seeing DeRochette. Wow, we got Utah and Wisconsin in here. Utah is going to be a problem. They may well be. And if Utah is going to be a problem, you should go handle UCLA. You should go handle UCLA. That is honestly what I'm expecting to see out of this game. I think this will be the start of the comeback tour for Utah this year with Kyle Whittingham. Okay, so there it is. Those are the 5 games of most importance to the Big 12 this weekend. You've got 3 dogs. It would be great if 2 of the 3 could win. That would be awesome. Colorado is a slight underdog. Auburn is a slight underdog. Cincinnati is nearly a touchdown underdog against Nebraska. You can get a couple of those teams to win. and that to hit this weekend, that would be great. That would be great. Any game outside of that I didn't mention, if the Big 12 team is losing, you got some problems. Everybody else should be handling the teams that they are playing. Maybe, I mean, Iowa State's got a pretty good South Dakota team who's like they're a really good FCS team. And coming back, the travel from overseas, all that, maybe you worry a little bit about how Iowa State handles all that, because that is a lot. But everybody else should be in pretty good shape. And if not, we may have a problem in the Big 12. So anyway, we've got a couple more quick things to get to here on the show. I do want to remind everybody, fill up the chat. If you want to submit a super chat, you can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. Like my guy, Daniel. It's great to see you. Daniel, Nebraska. We've changed the name now. Nebraska Cat Fan Dan Ozzie. Thank you, Dan, for your support of the channel. I appreciate you, my friend. Dan, very great to see you here. I was looking to see if there's a message coming with it. Yep, here we go. It's been a while. Hope everything is going well for you. It has been a minute. It's great to see you, Dan. Cat Fan in Huskerland, for those who have been around here for a minute. Appreciate you, Dan. Things are going well, and I hope things are going well with you and your family also. Great to see you around. Please don't be a stranger. And thank you again for your support of the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to do that. That's ofbnews.com. Or click the link in the description of the video to get subscribed. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All of that stuff really does help. This is one that's got a lot of people fired up. Certain Big 12 schools are trying to blow up their own rivalry traditions, which seems pretty insane, but it is happening per multiple reports, okay? Everybody just watched Farmageddon to start the season, and yes, emphasis on calling it Farmageddon, K-State and Iowa State. A lot of things to notice in that game. You had a sloppy field, sloppy start, some turnovers, but then big plays, a great finish, some clutch plays being made by everybody. A lot to take note of, a lot to have an interest in. I don't know if many people noticed this. I didn't, actually, as the broadcast was going on. I did not notice this until it obviously gets brought up later in the week here. I did not notice that it was not called Farmageddon on the broadcast at all. They did not mention Farmageddon once. I saw some people tossing around like when Fox had the game a couple of years ago in 2023, which was the Snowmageddon game. They had like a whole graphic package where it was the two tractors coming and like hitting each other and exploding like a big old Farmageddon. They made a nice, funny production out of it, which I quite enjoy. None of that from ESPN this time around. Okay. Now, this game has been happening since 1917, K-State and Iowa State. That's why you got people really fired up about how this, at least as of right now, is scheduled to not happen in 2027 because the Big 12 did not make it a protected rivalry. Little history lesson here. 1917, that game was played all the way up until 2009, and it was not really considered a rivalry. It was a regional team that K-State played all the time. And then it really exploded about the time people started calling it Farmageddon in 2009. They moved the game to Arrowhead for a couple of years. K-State and Iowa State played at Arrowhead in 2009 and 2010. And at that point, Farmageddon started being used as the name for it. Someone can remind me maybe in the chat. I don't remember the specific story of who had it first and who first came up with that. But that was when it really caught on, is when people were kind of looking for like a name for it when it was at Arrowhead. Then the teams started to really hate each other. The fan bases started to really hate each other because there were close games every year. And the teams were starting to they were good on both sides. Iowa State got a lot better. You had these close games, fan bases like really digging in and trying to tweak the other. It was really kind of like a you-know-what measuring contest where K-State had been the enforcer for a long time because Bill Snyder just never lost to Iowa State. Now here comes Matt Campbell. Pretty good program. Iowa State wants to measure up to K-State, and then at a certain point, they've obviously now passed K-State by winning 5 of the last 6. But it all developed under this name Farmageddon, which predated when it really blew up, but it was a big part of it blowing up. Okay, I'm giving you this backstory to tell you it's a great thing. It's a really cool game. You should want that. for your league. You should want that for college football to have rivalries like this and cool names like this. But Reese Davis says that the Big 12 is actually trying to shut this down. Okay. So Reese Davis gave the backstory on why you didn't hear it, it mentioned and called Farmageddon on ESPN on Saturday. So, yeah, take a listen to this.
Got a directive that the powers that be, I guess, for the institutions and perhaps from the conference, they weren't big fans of that moniker of Farmageddon. And I don't really understand why, because when something that's not a rivalry historically that's at the forefront of the college football consciousness, and you have a really cool name like that, it's not meant in a derisive way. It's a fun way, because you just mentioned that's in their DNA. It's part of their charter. It's what they and they've done wonderful and magnificent things in that field, and it becomes a fun way to identify the game. And, hopefully people won't send emails like that anymore and take away things that make it memorable.
Boy, pretty strong stuff there from Reese Davis. It was then followed up by Josh Pate, who gave a little bit more detail and said it was not coming from the Big 12. This was not like a league office thing, that it was coming from administrative types at one or both of the schools. Now, since then, there's been kind of a scramble. Like a K-State beat reporter got a statement from K-State saying, like, hey, it wasn't us. Chris Williams, one of the bigger Iowa State guys out there, Cyclone Fanatic, I saw that he had said, hey, Iowa State kind of told me, like, this wasn't us. I know Iowa State fans sure seem to be convinced online today that, like, Jamie Pollard, their athletic director, was a big part of this and kind of going after him. So I don't really know what to think as far as where exactly this is coming from, other than to say, I don't know, it sort of screams like university president to me. Now, I don't know if that's fair at all of me to say, but what I picture is Old School is one of my favorite movies, right? Jeremy Piven, who is playing the dean in Old School, kind of this like pencil pushing, got his glasses and like nerdy sort of guy, like by the book, by the rules that everybody thinks is lame. I mean, like, that's sort of who I picture being somebody that would not like this name and not want this to be used and stick. Like, what are you doing? You have something that magically became very marketable. Like, I got news for you. I'm a K-State grad. I love K-State to the core. I want K-State and Iowa State to be a game that people care about. Nationally, you have to fight like hell to get people to care about that game at all. You're in an SEC and Big Ten world, and like K-State and Iowa State are not historically bringing the juice to get people fired up about that. But when you call the game Farmageddon and it's caught on and it's become kind of like a fun colloquial college football thing, that generates more interest. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to do all your branding to the max as much as you can right now. You just took the game to Ireland to try and maximize what you could get out of it. And a big part of the reason that you did this game is because you knew, hey, people kind of know this rivalry now. Farmageddon, people know this. Lean into it. I truly don't. I saw some questions in the chat like, who, like, why? Why is this an issue? I mean, I truly don't know, other than I guess the assumption would be that you don't like the farm piece of it. Like, if you don't want the university to be associated with farming, but they're both ag schools. So like, you're going to just run from like what you can't run from what you are. I mean, you are what you are. And look, when I went to K-State, I was the kid from Johnson County, affluent part of Kansas City. And I get to K-State and they're kids from like Western Kansas who are like the ag types, like farmers. And I was kind of like, oh, like you would be the guy that would like look down on the farming thing or whatever. And here I am saying, embrace the farm. It's fun. It's what you are. It's college football, man. Like, dude, the Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl, the game, like Bedlam, the Holy War, like these make college football great. That is why this sport is better than the NFL. No, but I mean, there are great rivalries as opposed in the NFL, but like Is there a cool name for Cowboys Redskin? Oh boy, just a Redskin. Boy, what am I doing? Is there a cool name for Dallas, Washington? Is there a cool name for Green Bay, Minnesota? Like, no, there's not. There's not, because it's not college football. That's one of the edges that you have on the NFL, and everything is going so like corporatized, NFL light, that sort of direction. So why would you send yourself that way too, man? It's horrible. I just don't understand. And again, it just screams university president type behavior. I have no inside information on that. I want to make that very clear. I have no inside information on that. But that's the type of thing that I would imagine would be involved here. The type of figure would be involved here if somebody is legitimately going to try and put the, because I can't imagine. I saw some of the Iowa State fans upset at Jamie Pollard, and I know they've been upset with him over like beer sales in the stadium. They understand that he gets the big picture stuff really right, and he's been a tremendous athletic director there, but they have their issues. So I know there's almost a predisposition on something like this for them to go after Jamie Pollard a little bit, but like, I don't know, man. Like Jamie Pollard, I feel like is smart enough to realize he has to be. I give him enough credit in my mind to be like, he has to be smart enough to realize that that is something you should absolutely lead into. And like, what would be the problem? I had a hard time thinking, man, Jamie Pollard would really be someone who would like shut this down. I don't know. Now I see Daniel saying, hey, it's a bummer Farmageddon is going away. I don't know that it's for sure going away. I mean, first of all, they can't stop you from saying it. So you can put it in the chat. I can say it here on this mic. Farmageddon, 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 Farmageddon. Nobody jumped out of a mirror to come talk to me after that. But we can all continue to say it, and people will. So that's the other part of this. And this happens a lot of time when you get the sort of like lame university president sort of thing trying to stop something that people think are cool. Like they think that they can really stop it, but they can't. And then you just wind up looking stupid while you get railroaded and trucked by everybody still using it anyway. So I don't think it's going to legitimately really affect a lot of change here. And you're just kind of making yourself look silly. I truly, I don't get it, man. I really don't get it. And the biggest thing that I will warn you about this, Josh Pate said other rivalries in the Big 12, other rivalry names in the Big 12 could be on the chopping block too. That was a very ominous line that he dropped there. And I'm just here to tell you, I think the most obvious of those that you would think, I mean, I guess, could somebody find this something they wouldn't want to be associated with here? I would have to think it's the Holy War. I mean, again, no inside info. That's just me speculating based on what I heard him say, but you would think it's the Holy War. And I swear, man, if you're trying to go after the Holy War, like, dude, come on. I mean, Civil War, exactly. They try and change it. What did they change? What did they change it to? It's talking like a platypus or something there for a minute. Because to me, it is the Civil War. Like Oregon State is the Civil War. And like, it's a college football game. Nobody is mistaking that with some statement about society right now. I don't understand why the Civil War thing had to change. I would lump all of this right in there with it. And it's just, we're losing so much tradition, like by the day in college athletics, because of realignment, because of TV and the money and, private equity maybe coming into the sport here at some point in full force. You're losing so much of the tradition and the stuff that makes this sport the best thing on earth. The goofiness, the zaniness, Elijah Moore from Ole Miss lifting his leg to pee like a dog in the end zone in the Egg Bowl. That is college football, man. Stop taking this stuff away. Stop it. Oh, boy. Real quick one here before I go. 24/7 talent composite is out. Who is the most talented team in the Big 12? Well, I can answer that question for you, but I'm going to make you wait for it a little bit, all right? 24/7 talent composite takes the entire roster and divvies up, all right, how many 5 stars are on the roster, how many 4 stars, 3 stars, etc. Going back to their the star rating in high school that these guys all have. And tallying it all up, here's what we've got. Cincinnati, bottom of the Big 12. Cincinnati at 16. Interestingly enough, Iowa State is at 15. I mean, you guys all see how good Iowa State has been over the last few years, right? Iowa State, according to the 24/7 talent composite, just like sheer star rating, Iowa State is the 15th best roster in the Big 12, and they're still doing what they're doing. So in case you doubted Matt Campbell's coaching ability, and I say that to myself, who for a while really wondered about the ceiling of Iowa State, but some of it was exactly that, like seeing a roster like that. Well, how high could the ceiling actually be? Well, we've seen now that it's 11 wins and at least a Big 12 championship game appearance. BYU is at 14. Now, I think this is rapidly heading to change with the support that BYU is getting and Ryder Lyons on his way. BYU has been doing a much better job on the recruiting trail, but for right now, they're 14th, which underscores how impressive the job was that Kalani Sitake did last year with that group. Arizona is 13 in the 24/7 talent composite. Houston is 12. Houston does have one 5-star in there. I presume that's Connor Wegman, I would assume, right? So they have one 5-star, but only 5 4-stars, which is considerably less than almost everybody except Iowa State, who has only one 4-star or better player on the entire roster, which again is crazy. But Houston in there at 12. West Virginia is at 11. So, I guess if you're listening to West Virginia fans seem to be really optimistic about what's going on with their program, even in year one under Rich Rod. West Virginia at 11, a little bit higher than I would have expected with all the roster turnover that they have. But so is Oklahoma State at number 10. Oklahoma State, 9 4-star players on the roster. West Virginia, by the way, had 10. West Virginia in there at 11. Oklahoma State at 10. Kansas is at 9. Now, this is where things are really, really tight here. Okay, so Oklahoma State had a 702. KU and K-State both have 705s, and they are at 9 and 8, respectively. It's just KU 705.32, K-State 705.85. K-State's got 3 more 4-star players than Kansas on the roster, but middle-of-the-road rosters there. I mean, K-State was the preseason pick from the coaches to win the Big 12, and yet here they sit. Coaches who know these rosters more intimately than anybody else, they pick K-State to win the league with a middle-of-the-road roster at number 8 in the 24/7 talent composite. Utah is number 7. Okay, 13 4-star players for Utah on that roster. So upper half roster for Utah and trying to make the comeback. Start that off with UCLA this week. How about UCF, man? Maybe this is what, I have been very dismissive of UCF. I don't really love this Scott Frost move. I think he is still wildly unproven at the Power 5 level. Power 4, it was Power 5 when he took over Nebraska. Power 4 level of college football. But he does have 18 4-stars on his roster at UCF. I guess the counterpoint, the devil's advocate to my own point that I'm making there would be, well, Gus Malzahn recruited pretty well. I mean, Gus Malzahn had some talent there and was still struggling. So you got to coach him up. You got to execute. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but Baylor pays players now. Baylor does pay players. And because of that, Baylor has the 5th most talented roster in the Big 12. Baylor checking in at number 5, 14 4-star players. Arizona State at number 4. All right. So a lot of returning production here for Arizona State. They lost Cam Scadaboo, but they're at 79% on both sides of the ball combined. Returning production, according to ESPN's S&P Plus. They've got 18 4-star players there and the 4th best roster in the Big 12. It's not too far behind TCU, who checks in at number 3. Now, TCU had kind of been, since Texas and Oklahoma left, TCU had been the team that I assumed would be running this category most years. And last year they did. TCU did have the best roster in the Big 12. They were number 1. But that is not true anymore. They are just number 3. Colorado is at number 2. Colorado got 3 5-stars, 19 4-stars. All right. So Colorado has more 5-star players on the roster than anybody else, but it's only good for number 2 because who has 24 stars on the roster? 24 stars on the roster. And number 1 It is. It was being guessed in the chat earlier. It is Texas Tech. Okay, so Texas Tech with that big portal spend, they do have the number one roster in the Big 12, according to the 24/7 talent composite. 1 5-star, 24 stars, 57 3-stars. Gets Texas Tech to number one in the Big 12, which is 29th in the country. So that's, look, this is the point that you'll get hammered with from SEC and Big 10 folks all the time, and it's tough to dispute. The number one team in the Big 12 in the 24/7 talent composite, Texas Tech, is 29th in the country overall. Colorado is right behind them at 30. North Carolina's 31. TCU's 32. So you're looking at that matchup, North Carolina, TCU. North Carolina does have virtually an even roster, slightly better if you want to look at it this way than TCU. And then they've got Bill Belichick coaching against Sonny Dykes. So, I mean, I don't know if you would have told me 4 years ago, like Bill Belichick v. Sonny Dykes is the coaching matchup, I would not have felt great about the Big 12's chances of winning that one. But alas, it is what it is. If you're curious about, like, say, Nebraska, who Cincinnati will be taking on this weekend, Nebraska has the 20th best roster in the country, according to the talent composite. Boy, where was Cincinnati? I don't even know that. Let's see. Cincinnati, yeah, that's right. Cincinnati was at 16 in the Big 12. So I wasn't even seeing Cincinnati in the top 50 there. You get the idea. Nebraska has a significantly more talented roster than Cincinnati. I really wish this thing would load for me. Cincinnati has the 73rd best roster in the country, going up against the 20th best roster in the country in Nebraska. So a little bit of perspective there. Sobering perspective for the Big 12. Obviously, this translates as well typically into NFL draft picks. That's a tough thing. I know I saw some people online talking about this today, and they were like, well, hey, what about the fudging recruiting rankings when they commit to a Big 10 or SEC guy versus a Big 12 guy? And I'm like, okay, you definitely do see some of that, but the proof is in the pudding in terms of NFL draftees. And so that's what kind of backs up what we see from the 24/7 talent composite here. So yeah, all right. I think that is going to wrap it up for me. I appreciate everybody for hanging out tonight. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. All that stuff is great. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You see the sign. Shout out to the sign. Got another one coming for my 3 Mile podcast for those of you that watch that. So I'm excited to get that put up. In fact, it's here. I just need to get it put up. Didn't get it done today. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to try to do a watch along either tomorrow or probably more likely Monday for TCU North Carolina. Speaking of that game, to just basically hang out, shoot the you-know-what while we're watching a game. Just kind of curious to see what the interest would be in that, what the flow of it would be like, how fun it would be to hang out and watch a game. So if you guys are interested, be watching for that. Stay tuned to the channel here. And hey, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the college football weekend. It's here in earnest, everybody. Week 1 of the college football season. Take care.